It's official, Morgan, Pope and Vince Panaro are married. After the flashing lights faded and the cameras stopped rolling, Morgan, Pope and Vince Panaro quietly stepped away from the house that had changed their lives forever. The chaos of Big Brother 27 was behind them now, replaced by something far more intimate. A shared life, built not for strategy but for love. Their wedding had been small, almost hidden from the public eye. Just a few close friends, soft music, and a sense of disbelief that two people who once played against each other for survival were now promising forever. Morgan looked at Vince that day with tears in her eyes, not because she was nervous, but because she had never thought love could come from a game that thrived on betrayal. The first few weeks of their marriage felt like a dream. They cooked together in their tiny kitchen, laughed about their time in the house, and spent long nights talking about everything they couldn't say when microphones were always on. Vince often said he missed the silence, the kind of silence that only love can fill. But behind the laughter, there was something fragile. Fame had followed them out of the house, and not everyone was kind. Comments online about their relationship, whispers that it was all for publicity. They reached Morgan more than she admitted. Vince tried to shield her, but he felt it too. The world that once celebrated their love now questioned it. And those questions sometimes echoed in their quietest moments. Morgan, always strong, tried to keep smiling. She posted pictures, shared stories, and told herself that love could outlast noise. But late at night, she often scrolled through the messages, some sweet, many cruel, and wondered if people would ever see them as just human beings. Vince noticed her silence growing heavier each day. He would wake up to find her sitting by the window, coffee cold in her hand, eyes lost somewhere far away. He didn't always know how to reach her. They had faced nominations, alliances, and the harsh eyes of the nation. But real life, it turned out, was a different kind of game. Still, there was love. Even on the hardest days, when Morgan felt broken by words she didn't deserve, Vince would take her hand and remind her of who they were. Two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. And yet, as weeks turned into months, something unseen began to shift between them. Not anger, not resentment, just distance. The kind that creeps in quietly, without warning. The kind that no one sees coming until it's already there. It wasn't the show anymore. There were no cameras, no producers, no diary rooms. Just two hearts trying to hold on to the version of each other they fell in love with. And realizing how hard it is to stay the same when the world keeps changing around them. Days began to blend into weeks, and the glow of newlywed life started to fade into something quieter. Something heavier. Morgan still smiled for the world, but her laughter no longer reached her eyes. Vince noticed it in small ways. The silence between their conversations stretched longer. The warmth of their touch felt different, like they were reaching through invisible glass. They had built their marriage on trust, but trust is fragile when the world won't let you forget the past. Every interview, every podcast, every fan question seemed to drag them back to Big Brother. The alliances, the lies, the showman's talk. It was never just them. It was the couple from Big Brother 27. Vince wanted to move forward. He dreamed of something simpler. A home away from the noise, a life no one could dissect. But Morgan, still hurt by the things people said, couldn't let go. She worried about being forgotten, about fading from the spotlight. Fame had given her confidence once. Now it felt like a shadow she couldn't escape. One night, after another argument that neither meant to start, Vince sat on the edge of the bed while Morgan cried softly near the window. She didn't want to fight. She just wanted to be understood. But somehow, love had turned into a language they were struggling to speak. "I feel like you're somewhere else," Vince finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Morgan didn't answer. She didn't have the words. Because he was right. Part of her was somewhere else. Somewhere lost between who she used to be and who she was trying to become. There were good moments too. Quiet mornings, shared breakfasts, the familiar comfort of being side by side. But even those moments carried a tension. A silence that no one wanted to name. Sometimes Vince would scroll through old photos of them from the show, smiling, holding hands, whispering secrets in the backyard under fake stars. Back then, everything felt so real. Now reality itself felt like a show that had gone on too long. Morgan tried to fix things in her own way. She cooked his favorite meals, planned small trips, laughed even when she didn't feel like it. But love isn't about pretending, and the pretending started to wear her down. Vince loved her, but he was tired too. Tired of proving that what they had was real. Tired of being measured against something that ended long ago. Sometimes he'd sit in the living room alone, staring at their wedding photo on the wall. The one where Morgan was smiling so bright it almost looked unreal. The distance wasn't a sudden storm. It was a slow drift, gentle, invisible, unstoppable. Neither of them wanted to admit it, but both could feel it. And somewhere deep down, both of them began to wonder the same painful question. What if love isn't enough to save two people who were never meant to live outside the show that brought them together? The tension that had once lingered quietly between them finally began to speak. Not through shouting or anger, but through silence that cut deeper than any argument ever could. Weeks went by where Morgan and Vince barely shared more than a few words each day. The house that once echoed with laughter and music now felt empty, like a memory fading away. Every corner reminded them of what used to be. The promises, the joy, the warmth, all slowly replaced by distance and doubt. Morgan spent more time on her phone, scrolling endlessly through old comments and new interviews. The media had started to talk again. Stories speculating that their marriage was on the rocks, that their love was just for cameras. She told herself she didn't care, but her hands trembled each time she read the words. Vince saw her drifting, but he didn't know how to pull her back. He tried patience, he tried space, he tried tenderness, but nothing seemed to reach her anymore. Every attempt to talk ended with a sigh, a shake of the head, or the soft closing of a door. One evening, after another long day of silence, Vince found Morgan sitting in the dark living room. The TV was off. The city lights flickered through the window. She looked tired, not just physically but in her soul. "Do you still believe in us?" he asked quietly. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look at him. "I don't know," she whispered. "I want to, but I feel like we lost who we were." Those words broke something inside him. Not anger, but grief. The kind of grief that comes when love still exists, but connection doesn't. When two people still care deeply, but no longer understand how to meet in the middle. Vince walked over and sat beside her. For a long time neither spoke. The silence between them felt like the final chapter of something that had once been beautiful. Finally, Morgan said softly, "I thought love would be enough." He looked at her, his voice shaking. "So did I." Tears slipped down her cheeks. Vince wanted to reach for her, to hold her, but something inside told him that love shouldn't have to hurt this much to stay alive. That night he slept on the couch. Not out of anger, but because it was easier than lying beside her and pretending nothing had changed. In the morning, Morgan woke up to an empty room. His keys were gone. A note sat on the kitchen counter. Short, simple, painful. "I need some time to think. Please don't worry. I love you. I just don't know what that means anymore." Her hands shook as she read it. The man who once promised her forever had walked out. Not because he stopped loving her, but because he didn't know how to stay. For the first time since their wedding, Morgan felt truly alone. Not the kind of loneliness that fame brings, but the kind that comes when the one person who made you feel safe is suddenly gone. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet between Morgan and Vince stretched further than either of them had imagined. He had left only for a few days, but days became many, and every morning Morgan woke up to the same unbearable silence. The coffee still brewing for two, but only one cup ever poured. She tried to distract herself, to bury the ache in small things, cleaning the kitchen, sorting old photos, replaying clips from the show where they first met. Every smile, every laugh, every secret whisper from that house now felt like a different lifetime. A lifetime where love was easier, where they didn't have to fight to stay close. Sometimes she'd scroll through her phone and stop at his name, her thumb hovering over the call button. But she couldn't bring herself to press it. What would she even say? That she missed him? That she was sorry? Or that she didn't know how to fix something that felt already broken? Vince stayed with a friend a few towns away, trying to clear his mind. He missed her, missed the smell of her perfume, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her voice when she'd whisper his name late at night. But he also felt something he hadn't in months: peace. No pressure to perform. No tension in every conversation. Just space to breathe. He thought about calling her every day, but every time he tried, Fear stopped him. Fear that hearing her voice would only remind him of everything that had gone wrong. The world, of course, noticed their silence. Fans started asking questions. The headlines returned. Morgan and Vince living apart, they read. Sources say trouble in paradise. Morgan tried to ignore them, but the words stung more deeply than ever before. Because this time they were true. Late one night, Morgan wrote him a message she never sent. I don't want the version of us the world saw. I want the one that laughed without cameras, that cried without fear. I want to find that again, if you still want it too. She deleted it before pressing send. Vince, meanwhile, sat outside one night looking at the stars. Real ones this time, not the fake ones painted over the Big Brother house. He thought about the first time Morgan smiled at him under that artificial sky, and how for a moment he believed the world outside didn't matter. He realized then that love had never left them. It had just been buried beneath too much noise, too much fear, too many eyes watching. So he drove back. Not with grand gestures, not with promises, but with hope. When he walked into their apartment, Morgan was sitting on the couch, holding one of their wedding photos. Her eyes widened, and for a moment neither of them moved. The air was heavy, filled with everything they hadn't said. Vince sat down beside her. I'm sorry, he said softly. Morgan shook her head. Me too. No tears. No shouting. Just quiet understanding. The kind that comes when two hearts have broken enough to finally listen. For the first time in months, they sat together without pretending. Not as the perfect couple the world expected, but as two people who had been lost, and maybe, just maybe, had found their way back to something real. Morning sunlight poured softly through the window, touching the quiet corners of the room where Morgan and Vince sat side by side. It was the first peaceful morning in what felt like forever. There were no words, only the sound of their breathing, steady but heavy, like two hearts still learning how to beat together again. Morgan looked at him, her eyes tired but gentle. I thought when you left it was over, she said softly. But maybe we just needed to lose each other to understand what we really had. Vince nodded, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't leave to give up. I left because I didn't want us to break beyond repair. There was a pause, long, fragile, and full of meaning. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Tears welled in Morgan's eyes as she reached for his hand. I forgot who we were, she said. I was so busy proving our love to everyone else that I stopped showing it to you. Vince's hand trembled in hers. And I stopped fighting for you when you needed me the most. For the first time in months, they let the pain spill freely. The unspoken fears, the loneliness, the weight of a world that had turned their love into a story for everyone but themselves. They cried, not out of anger, but relief, because they were finally being honest. When the tears quieted, Morgan leaned her head on his shoulder. I don't care what people say anymore, she whispered. I just want peace. With you, or without you. I just want us to heal. Vince closed his eyes. Then let's start over. Not as the couple from Big Brother. Not as a story. Just as Morgan and Vince. She smiled through her tears, a small, broken, beautiful smile. Then promise me one thing, she said. No matter where life takes us, we don't forget this. The love, the lessons, the mistakes. Everything. I promise, he said, his voice steady but soft. Whatever happens, you'll always be the best part of my story. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Whether love would last or fade with time. But in that moment, none of it mattered. For the first time in a long while, there was peace. Not the kind that comes from perfection, but from acceptance. They had loved, they had hurt, they had fallen apart, and somehow found the courage to forgive. The world outside would keep talking, but inside that small apartment, it was quiet again. Morgan rested her hand over Vince's heart, feeling it beat beneath her fingers, slow, steady, alive. And as the morning light grew warmer, they both closed their eyes, not to forget the past, but to finally let it rest. Because sometimes love isn't about happy endings. It's about finding a way to hold on, even when everything else falls apart. Red Heart.